Guys, have you ever thought about what will remain after you're gone? I mean, what exactly will you leave behind for your children and grandchildren? To be honest, until I was 30, I never even gave this question a thought. But now I think about it almost every single day. Initially, your goal is like, well, I should probably buy an apartment for each of my kids, leave them a functioning business so they can keep it going. But at some point, I happened to come across the story of the Rockefeller family. The very first John Rockefeller, besides leaving his children a business, a fortune, and assets, he left them his diaries. There are 38 entries where he laid out a full manual, how to think, how to make decisions, how to tackle problems, the code of his mindset for the next generation. And today, in that family, there's a rule that's still in effect. Every generation writes these diaries for the next one. And as I started to dive deeper into all of this, I realized that in reality, the most important thing we can pass on to our descendants isn't money or assets. Because there's research showing that by the fourth generation after you, or even the third, I believe, your entire inheritance just vanishes. The children spend it, the grandchildren finish it off, and by the fourth generation, the great-grandchildren, there's absolutely nothing left for them. The money will be spent, the business will be sold off, but the code of your mindset, the way you thought, that is the true value that you really need to leave behind. And so, at one point I thought, what if I actually had a little diary like that, say from my grandfather or my father? How he thought, what truly worried him, how he made decisions, and what he wasn't able to achieve in his life. And considering that 25% of every person living today is made up of genes from their third-generation ancestors, meaning grandparents, this knowledge would be a huge help, especially when you start facing a crisis of meaning. This usually happens after, say, 30, when a person starts asking themselves, am I even doing the right thing? And suddenly, I don't even like my job anymore. The business doesn't bring me any pleasure at all. And just imagine if that kind of knowledge were to remain. Not how the empire was built, not the assets, but how your ancestor navigated through all of it. Most likely he faced the exact same things. But the truth is, while in the past highly developed people wrote diaries, like Rockefeller did, nowadays almost nobody does that anymore. And yet, this is truly the most important thing we can do. I have a project right now that I'm developing. It's called Legacy Code. The core idea is very simple. Who are my clients? They're people who share my point of view, who want to pass on to their descendants, their children and grandchildren, not just something material, but specifically the code of their mindset and their experience. What do? There are 10 main topics, and the answers to them will help to shape that very code of mindset. Childhood and the formation of personality, business, attitude towards money, career development, friendship, family, and in each of these blocks, we conduct in-depth interviews where we ask a large number of questions. That is, on average, for 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours, in order to form a person's mindset code and life experience for each of these topics. What he went through in life and what he would like to pass on to his children and grandchildren. Based on all this information, which is obtained through 10 in-depth interviews, a transcription and decoding of what the person said is formed. With the further development of technology, it will likely be possible to take this information, upload it into some AI agent, and this AI agent will give advice to children and grandchildren based on this data. This is what really drives me right now, and I'm happy to be working on this project because the asset of your mindset is a much more valuable asset than some apartment or a painting worth several $1,000,000. This point of view is actually shared by many people, but, of course, not everyone. I sometimes hear comments like, Joe, look, I've had so many difficulties in my life, my descendants will figure it out themselves somehow, to hell with them. Why should I help them? But there's another group of people who have actually achieved something on their own. They've gone through hardships and obstacles, and now they want to give back. Now they want to capture this entire journey, which will later help these people achieve something in life. And I started finding confirmation of this everywhere. So, I'm talking to a photographer here in Dubai. He's the most famous fashion photographer in Dubai. He shoots covers for fashion magazines. A very successful guy. We were talking about this service, about this idea in general. He tells me, I only just realized why I've achieved such success in this profession. When we reach a conscious age where it wouldn't hurt to talk to our ancestors and ask them questions from an adult perspective. The ancestors are already gone. That's it, the data is erased. Very few people left anything behind. I experienced this myself when I needed answers from my grandfather, who unfortunately was already gone by then. I went to the village, found some elderly women still living there, talked to them, and they gave me some general traits. Like what? Senka was kind, helpful, he helped everyone. But I already knew that. But what did Senka actually love? And what did he enjoy doing? And what would he have liked to do, but his work at the collective farm didn't allow? All this data is erased forever, nobody knows about it. It only stayed in his head and left with him. Anyway, back to the story. I'm talking to this photographer, telling him all this. He tells me, when I went to see my grandfather in the village, I found some old photographs. And those photos, he says, were so incredibly well made. I mean, he didn't make a living from it because at that time, nobody paid for photos. He says, I saw how amazing the photos were. With my professional eye, I realized he was quite talented at what he did. So, starting to develop in this profession, I didn't start from scratch. I started from the point where my grandfather left off. Again, there's scientific research that we are shaped more by the third generation of ancestors, not parents, but grandfathers and grandmothers. And I started, finding confirmation of this. I was talking to a chef recently. He tells me, I have the same story. My grandmother was actually a cook, but she worked in canteens. And so, continuing in that direction, I worked in expensive restaurants around the world as a head chef. And I started constantly finding confirmation of this hypothesis, this theory. If you think about it more globally, you've been through fire and water, achieved some results, not necessarily financial ones. Your mindset is fundamentally different in a way that millions of people who haven't achieved this don't have. Because when talking to, say, millionaires and billionaires, I have clients like that in this service. And when I start asking them questions, I realize that their mindset is truly different. Everyone wants to be a millionaire, everyone wants to be a billionaire. Well, okay, not everyone, but many people, let's say. But for some reason, only a few succeed. And when you start talking about their habits, how they make decisions, how they handle failure, it's a completely different mindset. And the main thing is to actually leave that mindset behind. And for example, when that person is gone, someone from their third generation might suddenly want to achieve results in their life too. They'll have the chance to open these diaries and get all this information. How to network, how to overcome crises, how to keep yourself in a great state. And what about spirituality? And how did you deal with certain difficulties? How did you personally handle such phenomenal success? This is truly the most important thing that you can and absolutely should leave behind for others. And if everything I have said resonates with you and you would also like to leave your mindset code, your unique way of thinking, for your descendants to help them at some point in their lives, then please message me. All the links will be in the description of this video and we'll start creating it for you. Write in the comments what you think about all this.